everybody. This is a special episode. Sorry we weren't here yesterday. I know that's our schedule. I had to be a mom and I was on the USS Midway with my daughter. If you're interested, there's pictures on Instagram. It was a really wonderful day. But I also, the other side of that, not just that I was busy, but Saturday, more of you can be here. More of you are available. And we wanted, because this is a very special episode to talk about these important topics, we wanted the most people here to be live to be able to answer questions. So that's what's going on today. I'm super excited. I'm going to add everybody in. You guys know Michelle, and I would like to welcome to the show Bill Keep as well. Hello.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
We are so excited to have you. So let's get into it. Bill, can you introduce yourself and tell us all who you are so people know?
Who are you anyway?
Well, I'm a professor of marketing. Then I became an administrator and a dean and a interim vice president and things like that. But with regard to this particular topic, in the mid-1990s, the Department of Justice came to the business school at the University of Kentucky where I was and asked for help on a pyramid scheme case. It was an MLM called Gold Unlimited. And that was my first exposure to the topic. I didn't even know what a pyramid scheme was. It was a criminal prosecution, and the founders of this scheme got 10 years in prison. Wow. Which is a little unusual. We see mostly a lot of civil prosecutions, but the DOJ can bring a criminal case. FTC cannot. So,
right.
That then opened the door. I was interested in this issue. And at the time I was doing research and teaching retailing, which of course all MLM claimed to be doing retailing. And so then started getting involved in some other cases, other public cases with the state of Florida, the state of Kentucky. I was involved in International Heritage Inc., which at the time in the late 90s was the largest case ever brought by the SEC. Wow. And I was in some private cases. Procter & Gamble brought a case against Amway. And then I've been in a few other private cases. My most recent case was a crypto case with the FTC a couple of years ago. In the meantime, I had
hot button topics.
Sorry?
Hot button topics.
Exactly. In the meantime, I had met other people who were critical of the practices of the industry and some of the structural issues, and had written a paper with Peter Vandernet. Dr. Vandernet is a longtime expert at the FTC. He's now retired. And literally every case the FTC brought where he was their expert, they won. They either won by the company just giving up, or they took him to court and beat him, including Byrne Lounge. Peter was in Byrne Lounge.
Wow.
And so he and I wrote a paper, and it was published in 2002, where it was the first academic paper where we tried to show how an MLM can actually be an illegal pyramid scheme. And we talked about where does the compensation come from. And so then, we were doing our respective jobs and sort of in touch with each other for a while. And then I had contacted Peter about possibly doing another paper right about the time that Bill Ackman took the short position on Herbalife. And so that, of course, a lot of things out there, a lot of awareness. Unfortunately, the issue became more of an Icahn versus Ackman issue than, some of the concerns that he raised with regard to Herbalife. The FTC, as you know, settled with Herbalife, $200 million, 7 years of monitoring, and in the end made the very really weird statement. Chairwoman Ramirez said that Herbalife was not a
pyramid scheme.
Not, right. So I don't know if she had to go to law school to learn how to do that, but it wasn't a very good signal. Although, I guess it could have been worse. So since then, there are people literally around the world that are interested in this issue. So Peter and I did write another paper, a history paper on this industry. In my view, Peter was early on the world's foremost expert on these issues. And he still does do a few cases now and again. Like I said, he's been retired now for a few years. But we're in touch. And so we talked to some other people. Some of your listeners and viewers probably know Robert Fitzpatrick, Doug Brooks, Stacy Bosley.
Yes.
Stacy was the expert in VEMA and Advocare and LuLaRoe.
Yes.
She's an economist.
Yes. And Doug has been on the show.
Doug and Robert have both been on the show.
So
yeah.
you know
Oh,
Doug.
Robert has too, yeah.
And so we decided that and also with some conversations with Bonnie at tina.org.
Oh, yes. Tina's great as well. Tina.org
Yeah.
is fantastic.
They really helped move the dial. I mean, they were really, really new in 2013. They brought VEMA to the attention of the FTC. Then I did some public statements about VEMA. It was on my campus. I was getting emails from concerned students and even, like moms.
Right.
So we decided that we wanted to do something together. And so with a group of people from every place from the United States, the Netherlands, England, Ireland, and we put together a steering committee, and we put together our first conference on the consumer protection problem, called it the Consumer Protection Challenges of the MLM. And we had Commissioner Phillips was our keynote. We had a total of 3 other either current or former FTC people. Kitty Daffin was there, Andrew Shrivers, Andrew Smith. We had the prosecutors from Washington for LuLaRoe. We had enforcement people from Italy and Ireland and Canada. We had a former high-level Amway distributor. We had cult expert, as you know. I mean, we were really.
It was fantastic.
Thanks. We were really pleased with it, and we know that the industry didn't like it. So
that's a good sign.
We think our concerns are really legitimate, and we think that the industry hasn't been held accountable for some of these things. It's funny because I had, yes, she has. I saw that note right there. I had, I become aware of an email where the DSA wrote to the FTC about our conference, and they said that they surmised that I was the person behind it. We did host it at my business school, and then they said that they had repeatedly offered to meet with me, but I refused. But I only actually have on my record one invitation to meet with Joe Mariano at the DSA, and I did refuse to meet with him. That's not my job. If he wants to publicly respond to criticisms I've written about, I'm happy to have him do that in writing, or go on some sort of record. But I'm not here to negotiate with Joe Mariano. Right. What's it to negotiate about? I mean, you have to be able to trust the words that people use, and I don't trust the words that DSA uses.
No.
Yeah.
Industry representatives. And so
very Orwellian.
It is. Some of us who helped put on that conference, we have different views, and we don't all think the same about the industry or about the nature of some of the problems or whatever. But we all share this issue of concern for, consumer harm and a failure to provide an adequate amount of consumer protection.
Yeah.
And so, we celebrate FTC interest in doing more. I think both Ramirez, Chairwoman Ramirez, and Commissioner Phillips, in their speaking to the DSA, it seemed to me they were plain speaking in terms of what they expected. But we know that there's a fundamental disagreement between the DSA and the FTC. And we've seen it in what the DSA has put forward or supported, like HR 3409, with the Mulliner Amendment, where basically what they want is to have all purchases made by anybody prove that this is not a pyramid scheme. And, you know, we're, it's completely inconsistent with 40 years of case law, actually now almost 50 years of case law. So we're aware of the fact that they have a lot of resources. I mean, they hire unbelievably expensive lawyers. They hire them for multiple purposes. They hire them to defend the industry. They hire them to help with lobbying. They hire them to help move the MLM companies into global environments. And they have the money to do that. We know that they've been well funded for a long time. You know, we're hoping that this is an opportunity that people will take advantage of. I can tell you,
we are too.
We absolutely want that to happen as well.
Yeah, it's. I didn't know they were going to do this. I mean, we thought that they might consider reopening the business opportunity rule, which, in my view, the FTC botched in terms of defining the business opportunity in a way that excluded, not totally, theoretically, perhaps not, but in practical terms, excluded the MLM industry.
Yeah.
And people may not know there was a letter writing campaign organized by the industry. And so the 17,000 comments that the FTC got with regard to the business opportunity rule were overwhelmingly, of course.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of letters. Oh my goodness.
My guess is they all said the same thing.
Yeah. I talked to Dave Vaughn about this, actually. We have an episode on the podcast coming up, and we talked about this. And yeah, I mean, they were slightly different just to not like tip off like a spam filter kind of thing. But yeah, most of them I think came from Amway, different lines of affiliation, all of them, this big comment letter writing campaign. And I feel like if Amway can do it, then anti-MLM community can do it too.
That's right. So, only ours will be a lot more genuine.
And educated, and authentic, and personal experiences,
and so evidence-based,
and lots of evidence-based, factual information as well. So yeah, like I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and I want people to feel comfortable. They may have never ever written a comment to a federal or state agency or governmental representative, and they may feel uncomfortable doing that. Right. But this is a global issue. Anybody can write to the FTC during this period. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen. You can write from anywhere in the world. And they're going to open up a 60-day period that we have never seen. And so it's the opportunity for voices to be heard. It's the opportunity for people to, share their concerns, share a little bit of their experience. They don't have to, it doesn't have to be a fancy thing. It doesn't, if they can just provide their story and a little bit of evidence, and we were able to get the numbers as well, then the FTC will listen. And in part, what we're doing here is providing the FTC with the evidence that they need so that when the industry comes, and the industry is coming with a lot of comments, and I suspect the industry will also rely heavily on members of Congress and senators, right? Senator Blackburn's a big supporter of the industry. We know Samina took money from the industry. We know they have a congressional caucus that helped promote those bills that I was just referencing. So we know a lot about people that they can draw upon. And also the DSEF, which if you get a chance to talk about that we have to talk about that too. So anyhow, that was a long thing as to who I am and what I'm doing, but
that was great.
Yeah,
I want people to know who you are, because I think a lot of people don't know a lot of the, I would say, key players on the back end. I told Doug once, I said, you guys laid those yellow bricks so that we could happily skip to the Emerald City. And that's right. That's what our job is here. and we've got boots on the ground, and
I refer to you guys
making
as
good
the
change.
OG anti-MLMers.
The OGs, yeah.
I wonder if I could ask real quick. I was hoping that maybe you could tell me and the viewers like a brief summary of what happened in 2011 with the business opportunity rule.
Right, because it's been 10 years since we've had this opportunity, right? The last time was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and what we're looking at here is a little different. And so, but let's go back to let's go back to it's a good point. We can talk about this label of entrepreneurship too, but let's go back to Michelle's question. So there are more than one industry that make money-making claims or money-making opportunities or things like that.
Right.
So when the FTC decided to do this, generate a rule, there's a very formal process that agencies have to go through. Not just the FTC. If the EPA was going to make a new rule, if the FDA was going to make a new rule, it's a formal process. And it involves, of course, a comment period, et cetera. If you look at the actual Federal Register, which maybe some people aren't as aware of, but the Federal Register is sort of the official publication of the federal government. And all of these things have to be put into the Federal Register. And so if you look at the Federal Register at that time, when they came out, what we see is first the FTC recognizing that the MLM industry has problems. I mean, they say it in writing. Then what they basically do is they back out the MLM from the rule by saying it's probably going to be too complicated for us to come up with something that will apply across these different situations. And in one of my favorite statements, it's actually in a footnote. And I wrote about this in a Seeking Alpha. It's footnote 124 of the Federal Register of the Business Opportunity Rule. It basically says that the FTC concluded that the benefits of including the MLM under the rule would not outweigh the costs. And what we're going to see here, by the way, with regard to the current ANPR, is the industry coming and saying, whatever you ask us to do is going to cost too much. And, we live in an environment, particularly now, but it's been pretty consistent, that there are people who believe that anything the government does that costs businesses money is bad. Now, has the government ever passed rules or regulations that cost businesses money and it was bad? Yeah, they have. And they've also created rules that made workplaces more safe. They've created rules that made pollution less. I mean, they have done things, rules that apply to businesses that cost businesses money that created big benefits. And so the issue here is going to be the industry is going to come out. One of the things they're going to talk a lot about is this is just an onerous rule. That's just another example of government costing business, putting a cost on business with no real benefit and blah, blah, blah. And there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to say that. And, at the time of the business opportunity rule, we're also looking at examples of former FTC people writing on behalf of the industry. Right. And so
that's a big problem.
It's a big problem. I mean, in general, and it's been talked about and written about for literally decades, this issue of former regulators of any kind or any other kind of employer, buyers in the military, going and then retiring or quitting and then going to work for the people that they used to negotiate with.
Yeah, and you see a lot of Congress people leave and go work for lobbying firms.
Right, and Herbalife hired a former FTC person
run their compliance department, right? It's like,
So
I know how to get around these rules. I literally wrote them.
Yeah.
it's a problem in a lot of industries, and it's a problem here.
Yeah.
So, the industry has been politically strong for a long time. Uh, uh, I see this comment about the regulation doesn't always come across the action, and that's is a problem. So there are when we look at the um, process, there are multiple opportunities for an industry to shape a regulation or a rule. Now, we're talking about here is a rule. Yeah, a new regulation would require, I think, would require an act, a law to be passed. And so, I didn't know that, Dave.
Dave's
So
in here teaching
Dave
Bill
does-
things.
y'all have to know that Dave lives in Taiwan, and it is like 1:30 in the morning, and he is here. And so we stand
Thank you, Dave.
Dave on.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, I actually, my son.
Oh, that's why he was DMing me at 1:00 this morning. I'm just kidding.
My son, daughter-in-law, and grandson live in Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
every time we want to talk, I can appreciate Dave's challenges. So
I see a budding friendship.
yeah, and so we have lots of concerns about the industry's ability to shape things. And if it's a new regulation, the industry will try to shape the law that creates the regulation. But laws are then translated into regulations, and then regulations could be translated into rule. In this case, the agency has the capacity to generate a new rule without having a new law that's necessary. They believe they do. And if you look at the start of the document, they'll even talk a little bit about that, right? So they believe they have the capacity to generate a new rule in the interest of consumer protection. The industry will. The industry has multiple lobbyists in DC on the Hill all the time, and the industry will be very, very active. They will engage across the board as much as they can, and so that's why this is a critical period to try to get people who have done to do something they've never done before, right? And I know that sounds like, well, it's not that big of a deal, just write up a comment, whatever. But a poorly written comment is much better than no comment at all. So if you're a little uncertain as to how you share your story, just sit down and pour it out however you want. We've got some ideas, and we'll go over these slides and stuff. But if you felt frustrated with your experience with an MLM, particularly with regard to earnings claims, if you felt in any way used or lied to, or if you feel like things were misrepresented to you, and especially if you can say how, if you felt like any evidence that suggested low earnings was sort of poo-pooed and say, well, you don't really want to pay attention to that. That's just people who didn't really want to do it anyhow. So you really need to share that out. And you'll notice that the FTC is very interested in different aspects of how they might address this, as well as just how big is the problem to begin with. I mean, they have conducted surveys that would show literally hundreds of thousands of pyramid scheme victims every year. Now, this is not about being a pyramid scheme. This is about earnings claims and money-making claims. And so the issue here is probably much bigger than hundreds of thousands of people. And
I love these comments from the audience. People already working on their comments. This is amazing. This is exactly what we need to keep doing. Alonda's already at 4 pages.
Yeah. And so it's really important that they hear.
Okay.
I mean, my hope would be that they would be overwhelmed by the volume. And that will help them understand and help them to demonstrate to any political critics that there's a problem here. So they have to show the problem, because to go back to this issue of benefits and cost, if only a few people are harmed and you're going to ask an industry to incur a whole bunch of costs, then the industry's argument's going to hold, right? That you're asking us to incur these costs, and really there's hardly a problem here. So to help demonstrate the size of the problem and therefore the benefit of addressing the problem, the numbers and the volume is really important. And as Michelle mentioned earlier, we don't, I have no doubt the industry gave boilerplate language to the distributors to send in during the business opportunity rule. We can, offer suggestions of things you may want to say or how of answers you may want to address. But heartfelt, comment from an individual who has had experience with the industry is the best. So, I mean, I've written, I don't know how much I've written about this industry publicly, a lot. And I'm working on more now. But the FTC isn't, I shouldn't say they don't want to hear from me. I'm sure they're kind enough to look at some of my stuff or whatever, especially if I bring some good evidence. But me alone, Doug alone, Robert, Stacy, etc., we can share what we have. Bonnie at tina.org and her people, we can share what we have. But to give you an idea of how to sort of move the dial, when tina.org did research on misleading product claims in the nutrition area and misleading earnings claims, that got noticed, right?
Yeah.
Numbers and magnitude matter.
Yes.
When last year I put a piece out in Seeking Alpha showing that the MLM industry in the United States was actually shrinking relative to retail sales, I got 10,000 hits in Seeking Alpha, which I'd never had before. Wow. It's that issues of magnitude and number that really strike a chord with people, and they're like, wow. And so I can't say enough about the things you guys are doing. And I'm going to be on with Alonda tomorrow to help share this and to help engage people literally across the globe.
Absolutely.
And there's something that not on my slides that I'll ask you how best to do this, but it occurred to me today, there's one more thing I would like people to do, and it might even make them feel more wanting to make the comment. When you get done with the comment, of course, you will maintain a copy for yourself, and you'll send it into the FTC. Then I would like to recommend people that they send that comment to their congressional representative and both of their senators, and just say, I'm sharing with you a comment that I sent to the FTC. Please support this ANPR. Right?
Wow.
Because
that's wonderful.
The industry, I mean, they all have email addresses, right? And if you don't know who your congressman is, I can find you. There's a link. You just put in. I figure we just put in your address or your zip or whatever. And it tells you who your congressman is.
Yeah.
And
we can add that to the website as well, so that people can find their congressman, and those emails will be easier. And
so, and they all have, like I said, they all have email addresses. And the reality is, in these situations, of course, the congressman or congresswoman, they have staff that go through this stuff, right? And then
Alonda, look at that. Her representative,
she's on it.
Back.
And so they have staff that look through these, but the congressman and congresswoman, they regularly say to their staff, I mean, it's a regular part of the meeting, what's going on in emails, what are we hearing, what are we, and that's, it was great that Alonda got a response. I worked for a congressman for a year full time, and I think that's fine, Megan. I see that. I think it's just fine.
I think it's even better.
Yeah, even though they may be very sympathetic or very supportive, they need to know that not all of their constituents share that view.
Absolutely.
And you can count on the fact that the industry is going to engage these people. So they're going to get the politicians that they can to express their views to the FTC. So why shouldn't people who have a different view get the politicians? Now, that doesn't mean every politician is going to pay attention. It doesn't mean that every politician is going to be sympathetic to your view, but they will have your view and you will have put it out there for them. And the reason that's interesting is because there's going to be more steps here, right? First thing, presuming the FTC gets enough quality, a high quantity of comments that persuade them that there's a problem here, then the next thing is they're going to have to propose the rule itself, right? If we're going to make a rule, what's the rule?
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that will be another opportunity to.
That's why there are so many questions. That's why there are so many 28 questions they put out.
Exactly. And so, and then.
So thank you for condensing those.
Yes.
Then the
and we'll go over those.
Yeah, we will. Then the Congressional Caucus for the Direct Selling Association is going to really engage, because now the language of the rule. So here's how the process goes. The FTC will develop the language of the rule. It goes through a formal process for comment, et cetera. They finalize the rule. And then if a company feels like their rule, that they've gone too far or something, they then sue the FTC, and the FTC defends it. This is true whether we're talking about, like I said, the EPA or any OSHA, any kind of
just normal
agency. It's normal, right? And they know it's normal, but that doesn't mean they want to get sued. So that they are careful with their language, and the FTC has got a lot of lawyers working there. But of course, as we just said, so does the industry, and some of the industry lawyers that will be helping them are former FTC people.
It's so frustrating.
It is very frustrating.
But I will say that I feel that the people that are leaving MLM and speaking out about it is so much more than the people that were with the FTC and helping MLMs. I feel like we're getting a lot more support on our side with people understanding what's going on, especially with the statistics, like you were saying. Numbers matter. I'm telling you, some of the videos and stuff that I post on social media, when I share statistics, I get all kinds of people that have never even seen my comment going, "I'm sorry, what?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "No, not mine though." And I go, "Here's your income disclosure." Yep. And they go, "Oh my God. Oh my God. What?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yes."
The reach that we have right now is unprecedented in this
amazing.
Movement.
I can prove that top distributors in a well-established long-term MLM can't even explain the earnings statement because they don't want to, in my view. But I can prove they can't explain it because I've seen depositions of them trying to explain it. And I think that the FTC is smart enough. You can see in the ANPR, they're smart to say maybe we should stop them from even putting this out like this, because numbers and data can be so misused.
Yeah.
I'm probably not inclined myself that way, but I think that there's a way to do it where more information is more evident to people. So it's really just a matter of how you present the data. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we've been disappointed before a few times in failure to act against the industry. So I'm, it's all about our expectations. I do think this is a unique opportunity. We haven't had it before. I do think that there's going to be some challenges beyond just the MLM industry. In other words, this rule could apply to the gig workers. So if, for example, I'll just make this up because I'm not sure, I haven't done my homework on it. If Uber said you can make X amount of money per hour and nobody or almost nobody makes X amount of money per hour, I'm just using an example, then this rule could apply to that as well. And
Right.
so the MLM industry has been partnering in a sense with non-MLM industries in a couple of ways. One is to make sure that their workers are considered independent contractors, just as in the gig workers. And the other thing is to not force them to be more transparent in terms of what people actually make or do. And one of the big problems here is this issue of, it's all up to you. And it isn't all up to you. It is somewhat up to you. But effort is up to you, yes. But it can be shown in a lot of different ways that the probability of success, particularly in an MLM structure, goes down as the thing grows. And there's a lot of asymmetric information. There's a lot of information the industry has that the average distributor doesn't have. And so the average distributor can't tell what their probability of success is, or even whether this area has been worked a lot before, or whether, they just have no information about that. They're just told to keep trying, and the people who don't succeed are people who didn't keep trying. And that's not even a major part of the story. There's a part there. We all might try something. I tried skiing once, didn't do it very well. Decided I want to try it anymore, so I didn't go skiing anymore, right? Doesn't matter. But there's much more here than whether or not a person decided it's not for them.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And again, with the Orwellian speak saying like, it's easy. And then you get in and it's like, we never said it was easy. It's just like this double speak and this bait and switch and the flipping the script on everybody once you're too deep to get out is so rampant. I know there was a lot of people that had questions about like the gig work. So thank you for clearing that up. Again, if you're going to tell me I can make this, then I better be making it. And if I'm not making it, then we need to readdress this and figure it out. I honestly think that MLMs, because they're so different than everything else, should have its own rule. But, maybe that'll happen in another 10 years. Maybe this is the next step. Baby steps. As long as we're always moving in a forward momentum, I don't think MLMs are ever going to go away. So education is really important, knowing the facts, knowing the statistics, and being able to have talks like this and explain things so people can understand easily is absolutely our main goal, because there's strength in numbers. And like so many people are saying in the chat, we have never had these sort of platforms before. We have never had this sort of like grassroots movement where everybody is coming out and saying, me too, this is happening too. Like that happened to me as well. I lost $50,000. It's horrible that we even have to come out and say that stuff, but it is really, really wonderful that we're able to do that. I also want to, we're going to hop on this website. We're going to go through these things and go through this opportunity rule so that people understand exactly what will happen. But the first thing I wanted to share really quick was Michelle's website. It's mlmchange.org. It will redirect to her website, but here on this landing page, you'll be able to choose English or Spanish is coming up soon. We have amazing Karina, and Blanca and Gladys. I think Vanessa as well are working on the Spanish speaking. And we also have Elaine, who hopefully will be able to do a Filipino, possibly in Tagalog or something like that, so that we can have that and put this on this landing page as well.
She's at least going to do our video.
Perfect. The more information we can get, especially to those communities that are affected more and don't have that information, I think is really, really, really important. Michelle's website, we're going to go with English here, but here on Michelle's website, this will change as soon as we know the date. This countdown will be more accurate, but she has everything here. The rule.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
I
don't know when it changes, it will be all updated. Or if it changes.
No, I mean the screen. The
screen hasn't changed. Oh,
yeah.
I know why. I know.
We're still on the redirect.
Why? That's why, because the redirect. Absolutely. Yes. Let me reshare. Thank you. I'm a hot mess sometimes, y'all. You know.
Hot mess express.
Hold on. Let me click it. I didn't even click it. Let's share the screen. Roberta, what are you doing? Here we go. I was so prepared and I didn't realize there was a redirect and I didn't share that. So here we have the countdown. We have what is happening. Here you have the actual, what do we call this? The ruling or the proposal? I'm not sure what we call that.
The advance notice.
The advance notice.
That's a notice. Yeah, it's a notice.
I was like, what do we call that? And then all of these slides, which we're going to go through. Michelle made them a little prettier for her website, but we're going to go through these with Bill in a second. And then down here, Dave, thank you so much to Dave. He created a quiz. This is so awesome. Fantastic.
We should go through it at least once.
If you are curious, we can go through this a little bit.
It's very quick. It's like a BuzzFeed quiz.
Let's see if it'll redirect. Of course, it'll redirect. So
see the teacher and Dave coming out.
Let me click on this. So here we go. Let's share Dave's.
Oh, it's excellent.
It's so good.
I went through it this morning, and there's just so much information. So who are we going to be? Are we going to be you, Roberta?
Yeah, I have. Absolutely, I have. Have you had experience as a consumer? Yeah, I have. You see how easy this is? Do you consider yourself a member of the community of color or historically I'm going to say no, but we're going to say yes because it's not just me. We're just going to go through this so everybody can see what this is and what it does. Do you have a legal background? We're just going to say yes. We're going to say yes to all of them. Do you collect screenshots? Yeah. For all sorts of them, absolutely. Would you say you're more focused on advertising by representatives?
You can click both.
I don't know. We'll say representatives.
You can do both.
Oh, we can do both. Perfect. You can do both, and then you hit submit. Super, super easy. We'll say both. Sure. Yes, why not? It's so easy. Yeah. Let's see, do you remember yourself? Sure, I'm a creator. I'm an audience member, whatever. And so here you go. And it comes up and it has everything in here with all, my screen is like small because it's all squished around, but it's great. So this is a really great place to come and be like, I have questions.
Awesome, Dave.
Dave, you are amazing. And I really, really, really appreciate this. It's been amazing, the community, when this came out and we were like, what's everybody good at? Everybody has been like, I've got this, I've got that. And we've been working so hard behind the scenes. Let's many of us are doing chat. This. It's awesome. It's so wonderful. So I'm so appreciative that we're doing this, that we have all of this. It's overwhelming. Like, the response is just overwhelming. Michelle's website is great. There's a couple more things on there, but if you're interested, go check it out. I do have a banner so that you guys can remember. It is mlmchange.org, and it is a landing page, and it will redirect to wherever you need to go, and it will be updated as we get that information. So
we're going to have the Spanish.
It'll be the most comprehensive and available information at the time. We are always working on, I say we, but it's Michelle.
The ANPR hasn't even been published yet on the regulations site, so we do have time, and we are going to have that page available in Spanish as well. We just don't have it up yet, so that link doesn't work on the landing page. You can only select English, but that's not going to be permanent.
No, it's amazing. So
Thank you, Megan.
Michelle's amazing. If you guys don't know, she is. Hi. So let's get onto these slides. These slides were the slides that Bill created. This is the most recent one, I think, that you sent us. And we're just going to go through them. And I think we're going to talk about these different things and figure out what's going on. I will pull it up on my side over here so I can read it a little bit better. But help the FTC rein in misleading earnings claim. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. So let's start here. There's so many things going on the back end over here for me so I can read things properly. What is this about and why? Bill, would you like to take the reins?
Sure. The complaints and evidence of misleading money making and earnings claims I think has the FTC concerned. And the FTC has already got 3 rules that affect different kinds of money-making or earnings claims. The franchise rule, the business opportunity rule, and the telemarketing sales rule. They are all focused into certain kinds of opportunities. We already discussed the fact that the business opportunity rule, there was a carve out there, and it does not apply to the MLM industry. And, as a result, I think that we had to wait as more evidence came forward. And I want to give some credit there to Tina.org on that. But not just them, but them for sure. It's very easy when you're just hearing from a few people to ignore a problem. But when you have evidence, and when you're hearing from a lot of people, and when people are showing you examples of the problem, like screenshots and like videos and things like that, as Tina had done, then it's harder to ignore. And this is a change relative to the business opportunity rule, because, and I mentioned it a little bit in slide 11, that in fact, this is a reversal in a sense. The FTC probably wouldn't say it was a reversal, but they probably don't like to think that they reverse themselves. What they could say is that the environment's changed, but it is a reconsideration of footnote 124 in the business opportunity rule, which concluded that the benefit would not exceed the cost, so therefore they wouldn't impose anything on the MLM industry. So this is definitely a change from that. And of course, as it mentions up here, there are other types of opportunities: gig work, coaching, certain kinds of franchise education, where people are being sold on the idea that for a fee, of course, that the end result will be something really positive for them on an earnings basis. And then there's no real rule that makes that evidence verifiable and clear, etc. So this is the first step in a process, we are fortunate, and I'm kind of reminded of this because of what's going on in the Ukraine right now in Russia. We are fortunate for all of the flaws that we have and all of our problems that we want to address in our own political system, in our own governmental systems. We are fortunate in the sense that we still do have a voice, and we can voice it, and we should voice it. And so, I feel strongly that the people who just want a bit of honesty in their dealings with these kinds of organizations, their voices have not been heard enough. And in some ways, I think that, we can talk about why. We can talk about why people hesitate. We can talk about why people perhaps have a bad experience and just want to set it aside and get on with their lives. But the reality is this has been going on for a really long time. And we need we need people to understand that to get regulators to move, the regulators have to be convinced that this is a real problem that they need to address. And then the next thing is how.
Absolutely.
Next.
So the purpose of this PowerPoint,
right? Well,
which we've kind of talked about already.
Right. I mean, this, as I said, the FTC is filled with economists and lawyers, and any governmental document is going to be dense. And you read through it and you're like, okay, this, but what about that? And why is it this way? I mean, they spend the first few pages hadn't even gotten to the point yet. So I thought, I went through it. I identified 7 key areas. These areas are all overlapping in the sense that they all are relevant to money-making earnings claims, but there are different aspects of that. And I thought maybe it would help if we could identify and focus on those areas. And then I make reference to the page number in the actual document, those kinds of things, the questions at the end.
Yeah.
I want people to, I've been a college professor for a long time, and most of the time when my students don't understand what I've asked them or told them or whatever, and I see that like in an exam question or something, most of the time it's my fault. I mean, sometimes, they're not doing their job, but I find that, clear communication is the key, right? And so this is my goal here, was to try to be as clear as possible. And this number one issue isn't the number one issue, because this relates to the last point about cost and benefit. The key here is, how big is this problem? I'm of the opinion that it's big. I believe it impacts millions of people in the United States alone every year. There's some evidence to suggest that in any given year, as many as 6 to 8% of U.S. adult population may be involved in an MLM. And so to the extent that they feel like they've been misled, that's a lot of people. And so the FTC needs to have a sense of magnitude. And even if the mere fact that you're writing adds to the evidence that of the size of the problem. And I just saw that note that came through. You're absolutely right. This is a global issue. It's been a global issue for a long time. And the industry has been very clever in their interactions with other governments in a way that I think has not helped. Let me put it a different way. In a way that I think has continued to allow consumer harm to spread from one country to another. So this is if not, you could even just start your comment by going, I have been misled. Just this is an important part, and it doesn't have to be, like I said, fancy words or long or anything like that. And again, just to refer back, if you have screenshots, if you have things that people have told you, and one of the reasons I mention that is the MLM industry has from time to time, even in writing, said that we can't control our distributors, or we can't guarantee our distributors will adhere to our policies or whatever. We have all the right policies in place. That's what they sometimes try to give the impression of, at least. Or we're trying.
We have the Amway rules.
Right.
Oh my God. We don't.
Right. And if the pyramid schemes are illegal, so we would have been shut down by now.
I could go on and on about those. But the issue of accountability here is something the FTC is well aware, at least I believe they're well aware, that this is that the people responsible for addressing this issue are the parent company and the top distributors. And the more evidence you can provide to support that view, the better.
So Dave asks, given that you can prove it happens multiple times in one space and you can show that they are guided to duplicate the practices, is that enough?
Well, it's very helpful. So the question is, I'm not even sure what's going to be enough. But I think that what we want to do is just keep providing the evidence that we have that shows that people are being recruited or even retained.
Yes, I do.
Or even, all of this misleading statements isn't just recruitment. It's not just, I was told that, and so I joined, and then that turned out to be not the case, and so I got out. That's not it. I mean, that's part of it. But the reality is that some of the communications you receive while you're in the process of trying are actually designed to keep you trying, right?
Right.
It's a retention issue,
Right.
right? And so and here's a way to think about it, because this is part of my comment that I gave to the FTC in the recent FTC public meeting. There's plenty of evidence to show that the average MLM distributor doesn't stay all that long, right? We know that. So that means that if you think of it from a seller's perspective, the sort of lifetime value of the average MLM distributor isn't very long. So I am going to want to sell them as much as I can, as long as I can, because I know they're leaving.
Right.
And so therefore, the messaging, not just in the recruitment process, but the messaging along the way, as you're kind of getting closer and closer and more frustrated, but the messaging to sort of ask you to sort of shift that frustration around and re-energize yourself and try again. And, that kind of messaging, to the extent that it has anything to do with money making or earnings claims, that's helpful evidence too.
Yeah, and we see that sort of stuff in like conventions and where you go and
Oh,
you
yeah.
see people are like, I'm re-energized in my business. And a lot of times people, when they go to convention, I was on the fence when I went to convention. And it re-energizes you, and it gives you a little bit enough more dopamine to just keep going a little
Yep.
bit longer.
Yep.
And then 3
And-
months later, they'll give you another hook. Oh, you want to go on a free cruise?
And that's one of the reasons that I think it's so awesome that some of the questions in this ANPR do specifically ask about like lifestyle claims,
Right.
because when you go to these conventions, and even before you're in an MLM and you're just seeing people post on their stories on Instagram and things like that, the way that people portray their lifestyle, and then they say this is all thanks to Monate or whatever it is, a lot of the time that's not even true. They're drowning in debt because they
Right.
leased this car that they can't afford, and they're driving it around because they want to show people what's possible.
Right.
And I think it's really, really good and important that the FTC is asking about that, because it means it's been brought to their attention. They understand that that may be an issue.
Right. Things that have been said from the stage. Let me just also mention any promotion of training, coaching, what used to be called the Amway tools, any thing that's used to try to get you to keep trying and keep buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because those two things are linked, right? In order for you to stay qualified for earnings, you have to keep buying. They're making money on everything you buy. And so, keep trying and keep buying until finally, out of frustration, you give up. And so you realize two things by the time you give up. I'm not saying this is true of everybody, but I think it's at least true of some. One is that you've spent more money than you thought you were going to. And the other is you have no real good sense of how all your expenses were.
Right.
Until at the end, you sort of sit and add it up and you go, holy cow.
Mm-hmm. That happened to me
We
almost live on the podcast.
Yeah, really, absolutely. It happens. We ask people to do profit and loss statements. Just look at the numbers. And most people don't ever do that until they get out and they're sitting with themselves and going, what just happened? Like Michelle.
And even if they do, and even when they do that, they don't take into consideration a lot of other expenses that they have, encountered while building their business. And one great resource for that, I will plug all day long, is Megan Williams. What is the book called?
Cutting Ties, Healing. What is it?
Healing After MLM.
Healing After MLM. I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
It's right here.
So Megan will, and you can get this on Amazon, but she literally has a chart in there of all kinds of expenses that you wouldn't even think to include in your profit and loss comparison.
Right here. And
so
oddly
awesome.
enough, I checked off most of them. And they were things that I was just like, oh my God, that too. Live video materials, video chat fees, storage for products, tax preparation, gas mileage to events, travel cost for company events, childcare cost for trainings. I mean, there's things that you would never even expect would be related to this, which then moves us to our next. Can a disclaimer even solve this problem? Can letting people know that that's a thing, like, because I see that on income disclosure statements now, they're being a little bit more, I mean, it's tiny, and it's kind of grayed and you don't really see it and most people ignore it anyway. But it even says in there's a lot of gaslighting about, you have to have your own due diligence and you have to be a hard worker and you have to really put in the time. And I'm just like, I don't know if that ever is on any other disclaimer on any business. I don't know if I went to go work at Target, that at the bottom of the contract I signed, it's like, just so you know, your income is dependent on how much you work and how hard you work and how many people you bring into the store to buy things and work here too.
Here's a curious thing. Why doesn't the disclaimer say, if you if you engage too much in activities we ask you to do, your expenses will exceed your income. If you do this or that, in other words, the disclaimer isn't helpful to you. You get a disclaimer. I bought a lawnmower, a lawn tractor, and in it, in big writing, it's like, be careful how you drive this on a hill because it could tip over. Okay, that was very helpful to me, right? Just a reminder, right? Don't drive it on a hill in a certain way, right? So the disclaimers aren't doing that. They're not trying to help you be more successful. They're
just trying to remove liability for the company.
They hope to be doing that. And the FTC is aware of something called net impression. In other words, if you're told 100 times something, the fact that one time in writing it said that that's probably not necessarily going to happen to you, it doesn't let the company off the hook, right? And so this is actually of the 7 questions, this is probably the easiest for me to answer, which is no, disclaimer doesn't help solve the problem. In fact, I would argue that it is actually adds to the problem because it at least gives some people the feeling that, well, you've been warned, kind of thing.
Right.
What we can't tell in an MLM is like all the conversations that go on person to person or in social media or with the upline person or whatever. It would be very easy to discount disclaimers in ways that we would never even see. Right. And so this disclaimer, I haven't looked at the literature on disclaimers yet, but I will be looking at it pretty soon. There may be some evidence that some kinds of disclaimers work, but I think that we'll be able to show that in this instance where the messaging is unrelenting, right?
Yeah,
you're
and
pursuing the opportunity, the messages are unrelenting.
And a lot of these representatives will immediately contradict the disclaimer after they say it. They'll say, results not typical. I have to say that, but you're not typical.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to say that this is what the average person makes, but I mean, you're not average.
You're not average.
I mean, I know I'm not average. You're not average. And then also the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like not all of the money that you're spending on these disclaimers, or if there was a disclaimer, not all of the money is going into the MLM, but it is going into that complex of you understanding in a way that like, I'm building a business and all of this money that I'm putting into it is for my business. And so even though it's not maybe MLM stuff, and so you're not putting in your profit loss, like you need to be, because that keeps you in longer. Oh, I bought that really expensive desk. I can't quit now. Oh, I bought those clothing racks and all those hangers. Like, what am I going to do with all of that if I leave? Like, I have to stay longer. I have to try harder. So the MLMs bank on that sunk cost fallacy as well.
Yeah, it's I mean, that issue of sunk cost, right? It's an issue you always have to bring up because the next generation doesn't get it. I mean, I talk to my students about that, right? And in fact, I have a problem I have them work out, and part of the problem is spending that sunk costs. And
Melissa,
you can't count it. It's
same.
Here we go. Yeah, if the write-offs, you just write it off. You just write it off. They're just write-offs.
And these throwaway statements like that, these throwaway statements are meant to, make you feel better about the situation or whatever. But they are throwaway statements. If you do not have the income, then what are you writing off, right? And if you do have the income and you're writing things off, you still may be net way in a hole, right? And so this issue of earnings and expenses and other things is something that the industry has avoided talking about, and that's why they do bring it up in this ANPR, which is good. But in terms of this number 2, the disclaimer, can disclaimers help solve the problem? I would actually say that disclaimers are being abused. And so they aren't helping the problem, and they may be actually making the problem worse.
Yeah. So question about that real quick. If someone is going to address that specific question in their public comment, would it be helpful to say something like, yes, but not the way that they're required to be written right now? Like, yes, disclaimers can be helpful, but they would need to cover more bases?
Yeah.
Or just no.
I think if well, first of all, I want people to come to their own conclusions, in the sense I don't want to tell people what to do.
Sure.
And so I want people to think about it. If someone could have used certain words to help you judge the risk of succeeding or the risk of losing money in pursuit of the opportunity, what would those words be, right? And so I don't know, because
I don't know that anything would have changed my mind, disclaimer wise,
So, but I mean, other people might have went, well, if they've told me or whatever. I mean, the incentives work against a disclaimer. In other words, your immediate upline, their incentive is to keep you trying and buying. The people who are speaking from the stage, even if they don't have a direct benefit from you, what they benefit from is creating an aura of retention, of people continuing to try. Because if they say something and you continue to try, even if you're not in their downline, somebody in their downline might come to the same conclusion and continue to try. So they know that they're creating an environment. And I just wanted to say one more thing about the things you guys just raised about the trips and things like that. MLMs are fun until they're not, right? And so, I have written before, like if you look at the earnings here, it's like working, 2 days a week, minimum wage, or something like that. Well, when people read that, I'm sure to the extent anybody reads it, but when people read it, I'm like, who wants a minimum wage job? Those are dreary things, I suppose, or might be dreary things or whatever. And an MLM isn't like that at all. An MLM is fun, right? It's people laughing together, having a glass of wine together, all going to, like you said, a conference or meeting together. When I was in industry, twice I went to national trade shows. They were so fun. Entire industry was there, right? People from across the country, and we'd all go out for dinner afterwards, and fun, really fun. But in the end, that's not why you're there, right? It is something gratifying that people have, but people are making money off of you, right? And so Absolutely. When you lose that perspective, then they'll continue to make it fun, and you'll continue to spend money.
Absolutely. It's all about that dopamine. They know how to manipulate it. They know how to keep you in. They know how to make it fun. Lots of bright lights, music, glitter. It's a troll party.
Love
It's all
bombing.
designed that way. It's all designed that way.
It is. It's a love bomb because nobody like we go back to the cult analogy, and nobody joins a cult.
No one like actively is
They
like, you know what I'm going to do today?
They join something fun that turns out to be a cult.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you know,
and that's the same. You know, nobody joins a business opportunity that they know they're going to fail in.
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's right. They don't. And what's in my view kind of shameful here is the first people they want you to tap into when you join are your friends and family.
Right.
Yep.
Or these what they call warm markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, that's not the only
Make
industry.
your list of 10.
Right? That's not the only industry that I've had kids who graduated from college and got jobs working in the insurance industry or the investment industry. And so what do? I get an email from a former student asking me if I need any insurance or we'll meet with them or whatever, right? So, you know, I understand that.
You're like, read the room.
Yeah. But the issue here, this is an industry that so the student asks me if I want insurance. I don't want insurance. Okay, so they're not going to make any money. They're going to go away. If I say I do want insurance, I know they're going to make some money from me. That's fine. But I'm not then going to turn around and get somebody else to do it. This model is premised on everybody else turning around and getting somebody else to do it.
Right.
And you know the feelings, and I've seen this in depositions and other things. The feelings that people have after the fact, after they've decided to leave and they've added up their losses and they've involved their friends and family, the feelings are really unpleasant. They're very negative. You know, they're sad, frustrated. Sometimes it's cost people, as you know, it's cost them friendships. It's cost them, you know, relationships. That's marriages. Yep. And even relationships, you know, like between parents and children. And so it's a really it's funny because on the one hand we're talking about fun and laughing and everybody getting together and as you said, the dopamine and everybody, and then on the other hand this huge letdown and this sort of sadness.
The crash.
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, we talk to people all the time. There's a lot of people out there that are so ashamed they don't even want to talk about it. They say, oh, I'm just not a salesperson. Oh, I tried that. Oh, yeah, it was fun, but no, I'm just not a salesperson. And they never talk about any of the bad stuff. And that's what allows this to continue. Right. So, you know, these required disclosures.
Right. Now, can a required disclosure means information help solve the problem?
Yeah.
So I think they can. And I think that if the industry feels this rule is going to happen, the industry's going to focus on this because they're going to want to shape what a disclosure would look like.
Yes, Andrea.
Yeah. No, that's right. Treat it like it is. And I think that the in part the answer to your question, Andrea, is that someone in your upline might, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but someone in your upline might go, yeah, I know. You have to be a little patient here. You know, it took me X amount, or I knew somebody that took them X amount or something. And just to get you trying a little bit longer. And so, but yeah, I think that I will be working really hard on answering this question because this is an industry that does not have a lot of transparency. And we have to find a way to force transparency into the industry. They have to disclose more. And so what that looks like, and in some ways, you guys are better equipped to answer this question than I am, at least from your own perspective, because there are hundreds of thousands, millions of stories to be told about experiences with MLMs. And so I can't probably capture what kind of information would have been really helpful to you. I think I can grab most of it, and I think I'll be able to address that. But it will mean so much more, I think, if someone could. Your answer doesn't have to be perfect. Don't rack your brain as to how does this have to be the perfect. Whatever you put is not
Speak from your heart.
Yeah, it's
tell
not
your story.
You're not writing the rule. You're
Right.
just giving them pieces of information that they will use to shape the rule. And we get to come back when the rule is proposed and we can comment on it. So, don't go for perfection. Don't go for, I need to make sure I include this. And then the other thing, and then, my experience, with my students, for example, is that the more you procrastinate on getting the task done, the more frustrating you become. And I think it's much easier. My recommendation is at the most 3 and even 2 settings can work. Write your ideas down in one setting and then let them set, right? Just get it out. It can be bullet points. It can be however you like to write.
We're going to have 60 days.
Yeah, we got time.
Yes, get it out and let it kind of set. Then come back and go, and in that process, you'll think differently. You'll change words around. You'll think about how one point leads to another point, and then you're going to be able to craft a comment that kind of makes sure that it highlights your issues and concerns and flows, and you'll be happy with it, I think. And again, you don't have to write like a college professor. Probably it's really good if you don't. Just write like you would as if you were writing to a friend.
Yeah.
I really want you to know this thing. Tell a story to a friend about something you're concerned about.
Absolutely. I think that's really great. And again, like, we have the time. You have the time to edit the comment, get it down. You could be driving around or in a hot shower and go, oh, I forgot something. You can add it to, you can email yourself or open up a note or whatever on your phone, on your computer, whatever, and add those things. And when you really feel like you've sat and you've thought about it and you have all the bullet points, then you can sit and craft your comment and make sure that you're hitting all of the things that you really wanted to talk about. This is definitely not something that you're like, oh crap, I got to write a comment right now. It's something that you really do need to sit with. Like Alonda said, hers is 4 pages long. One of the questions that we had that actually kind of goes with this, let me find it. I think it was Kayla.
Yes, about the screenshots. It's in your start.
It is in my start. I'm trying to find it. About sending screenshots and where we can put those and if we can submit them. Right here. Here it is. I want to ask before I forget, will we be able to submit videos and screenshots as evidence with our comments? Is there going to be a place where we can add attachments?
I don't know the answer to that for sure. Okay. So I'm learning about this process as well. I think there is. Be sure, by the way, that there's nothing, don't include anything that's personal or confidential, nothing that might reflect somebody's telephone number, someone's social security number, someone's anything like that. And don't put anything that was shared that's confidential. There is a process to share confidential information. So I would, if you really want to dig into that process, it's described, it's going to be described, but you can always reach out to me and I can find out more information about that. Here's what I recommend on screenshots and things like this. I guess sort of 3 things. First of all, hopefully you can add attachments and then that'll be fine. If you can't, you may be able to embed at least some of the information into your comment. And then the third thing is that what you can say is, I have evidence of the following type. And you just describe it like in bullets or something like that. I have screenshots that show blah, 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 right? I have, a text or DMs or, short videos from an event or whatever that demonstrate here my point, and that show that these are actual industry people saying X, right? That will get read and looked at. The FTC has the capacity, certainly, where they could reach out to you and ask for that evidence. But I think that keep your evidence, submit it if you can. If you can't, describe it, then describe it in your comment. And I think that the FTC will take a notice of that.
Absolutely. What about like if you have maybe like a Google Drive where you're sharing links or something, and then maybe just putting a link to the drive or a link to something that has all of those other links? You could do that as well, possibly.
That's a good idea.
So
this is my evidence here.
Right.
I've compiled it. Like Alonda said, she's going to make a YouTube video with all of her evidence and then share that.
I mean, for this last public meeting, you were actually able to submit a video.
Right.
And Alonda submitted a video.
Alonda did.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they've got the technological savvy and are open to different formats of evidence. So that's my optimistic view. And but at a minimum, if you were going to make a little laundry list of the evidence you have, you could have that laundry list and you would put that in your comment.
Yeah, I think that's great. And
great
Melissa,
advice.
Absolutely. Tracy Conan is amazing. She is a great resource.
She's been around a long time.
A long time. She's great.
Yeah. We've
really
exchanged emails a few times over the years.
Yeah, same. I've been trying to get her on the show, and I need to email her again. We'll have her come on. Well, here's a good point. Disclaimers don't work if the distributors discredit them. For example, saying the income disclosure statement looks bad because those people don't work hard enough. That's going to always be something that they're going to say. They're always going to try to discredit literal facts, literal statistics with anecdotal evidence.
Right. Exactly. It's
all
just like the
rhetoric.
But
just
here's
the results not typical, but neither are you.
Here's a curious thing. The earnings statements for a lot of MLMs that at least I'm aware of haven't changed very much over the years, right? In terms of a percent of people who are earning well. Right? And yet over the years, those same MLMs have developed training programs and have developed events, and Herbalife had something called the Circle of Success, and have all these things, and yet nothing changes.
Right.
So it doesn't say to me that this is the result, that these earnings distributions are the result of people who just aren't trying or whatever. Right? There's something structural going on there. And I know for sure there's asymmetric information, meaning the industry and its top distributors have information. I don't know who exactly, of course. We'd have to look at the individual firm. But I am absolutely certain that the industry and at least some of the top distributors have information about downlines, about geographic areas, et cetera, that no distributor has access to.
Good point on that. Here's a question from Emma. It's kind of embarrassing, but what if you were one of the ones that were perpetuating? Should you put that in the comment? Like, I know this is happening because I literally was a part of it and I literally did it as well.
The answer is yes. I think that will be very helpful.
I feel that would mean even more.
Yeah. I think that, just what you have, what Lauren Smith just put in there, the fact that you were encouraged to do so, the fact that you were following role models, and that sort of thing. There's plenty of, whenever we do something that, we wish we hadn't done, there's plenty of room to be embarrassed about something. Any parent has done things as a parent, you're like, oh boy, I wish they wouldn't have done it. Right?
Oops.
And that sticks with you, right? That sticks with you. It's like, I'm pretty sure, like when my boys were teenagers, I could have done a better job. But it's good to be honest about these things. And actually, the feelings, talking about them, actually, I think can make it feel a little better. First of all, if you were encouraged to do this and you did this, just look around and see who else did it, because there was a lot of it being done, right?
It's not just you, for
Right.
sure.
It wasn't just you. It was because they wanted it that way, right?
And that, Emma, I just want to thank you so much for having the courage to even say that, because
Yes.
that is what is driving this movement right now, is people like you and like Roberta and myself who
I
are
was gonna say you too,
willing
girl.
who are willing to come out publicly and say, I did some toxic stuff and I know it's happening because I was there, because I did it. I'm willing to take accountability for that if it means helping other people not
Others,
fall into the
yeah.
same trap. And that is what is driving this movement, is people having the courage to actually come out and admit to that. So thank you, Emma.
Yes,
Right.
thank you, Emma. This
Yeah.
is a great point too, that in Mary Kay, they encourage you not to tell the potential recruits what's actually going on because you don't want to scare them away. That happened to me in LuLaRoe as well. Oh, we don't say that. There's people in here that haven't signed on yet. Like, you'll scare them away.
Mhm.
So
That
that's
dates
another
way
great
back.
thing.
That dates way back to the 60s and 70s with Amway. You would be invited to somebody's home, but they wouldn't tell you why.
And
Right.
Amway especially
never
still
know.
does that.
You would never know. And it's a very, I mean, I'm a marketing professor. People who are proud of their products and services
Tell you what they are.
Tell you
yes,
about it.
they do. In fact, too much, right? But
Yeah.
here we have just
I
the
was
opposite
just
going on.
Yeah, I literally just yesterday listened to an MLM horror stories YouTube video that somebody had submitted a story to. Oh, I think it was Deanna Mims, that was
She's
like
great.
about how this woman had been asked on what she thought was a date, and she showed up and there were like a few other people there, and it was this guy's mentor, and it was an Amway presentation.
Yeah, I've had students invited to situations where they thought it was actually a job interview, other things.
Especially with like Primerica and companies like that.
Yeah, and let me. In fact, I'm going to just use this opportunity to tell you how bad this problem is in some ways, from a regulatory standpoint. This was a few years ago when I was at a different institution, but I had a student come to me and was very upset, and they had gone to what they thought was a job interview, and it turned out to be an MLM recruitment event, and she felt like this was pretty underhanded, and she didn't like what they were even saying, and so she shared with me some of the information, and I contacted the Attorney General's office in the state then that I was working at. I'm going to skip mentioning it right now, but anyhow, I did, and so one of their lawyers called me back, and he said, "Well, does this company have a product?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, then it can't be a pyramid scheme." So it's like, first of all, I know
It has nothing to do with it.
because I've helped prosecute them. I do
Good
know.
Lord.
It
I
just
hear that so much. All these top
Well,
leaders
I can
say
outrank
that.
my upline.
right. We have a lot of state assistant attorney generals. So all the lawyers who work for the attorney general are assistant attorney generals, and then you have the attorney general, right? We have assistant attorney generals and attorney generals who don't know anything about this issue. And in fact, we have some, if you are familiar with the company Fortune High Tech Marketing, FHTM, that was shut down, they had an advisory board that had 2 former attorney generals on their advisory board, called attorneys general, on their advisory board. That's how bad it can get.
Talk about insidious corruption.
It's
So
wild.
So it should probably, this is a really, I don't have a really good answer here. I think I'm going to end up, and I'm going to end up probably addressing this in the disclosure issue, because I do think that there is, so MLMs have data. They have a lot of data. They know, I mean, at the most basic level, they know who they write a check to, and they know how much, right?
Yeah. Even if they say they are too young to have that data, And
Oh
they've
my
been open
God.
for 2 years.
Yeah, we're
They-
young. And I was like, you guys have 5 years of data. Why don't you have an income disclosure statement yet?
They have, I mean, if you are writing a check to people, there's a record of it, right? The bank has a record of it. You have a record of it. And you know why you have a record of it? Because those are expenses and you have to calculate profits in order to pay taxes. So you have to have a record
You
of
have
it.
to report them.
So, in fact, they do have all these records. And those records can tell us a lot. Now, up to now, I mean, I have written multiple times in Seeking Alpha that these earnings claims statements misrepresent what's going on. And I've given examples, et cetera, et cetera. Sometime if you ever want to run through how that works, we can always do that. But I'm not inclined to say, let's forget this data. So anything that I will address with regard to earnings data and statistics will be in the context of a disclosure. And one of the things that I've talked about that I haven't been gotten as much traction with it as I would have liked, but I guess this is the opportunity. I hope it comes up. So, we know that the averages are not helpful and can be abused. We know that there's an underlying distribution that creates that average. And when the mean and the median, and I don't want to get too far into this with people, but I've seniors in college that get squirmy when I start talking about statistics sometimes, and they had to pass the statistics course and they still don't like it. The mean is the average. The median is the halfway point. When the gap is big between them, it means that your earnings distribution are all skewed out, right?
Because $1 million earner could skew the mean, but not the median.
Right. The median is going to be can be 0, and the average can be.
It usually is
well above 0.
Right.
And so, but the distribution issue is an issue, but I think there's another issue here that's really important, and that is that when you put those percentages out there and you say, 1% earned above this or 0.5 earned $250,000 or whatever, we have no sense of if that's always the same people year after year, right? So I've been using the term top earner persistence. If the same people fall into the same categories year after year, or almost always the same, then what is your probability of getting into that category, right? It certainly is not reflected on the earnings statement.
That's an amazing point.
Unless you know that persistence. And it's even worse than that. In some MLMs, once you have a title to achieve a certain level, even if you no longer earn at that level, they keep using that title.
Yep.
Right. And so, it appears as if you have more people at that earnings level. So if you've achieved, I'm trying to think of it. I don't want to pick on something that.
Well, like in LuLaRoe, like all you had to do is hit that rank one time, and you would forever be that rank, even if you never hit it again. Like if you.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you earned, how do they label their ranks?
Trainer, coach, and mentor.
Okay, so you earn the rank of mentor, and then for a variety of reasons you can't maintain that, and you fall back. They're going to keep labeling you and counting you as a mentor.
Yes. Yes, and in Beachbody they would do that as well. You don't continue to get paid as a 1-star diamond, but you are a lifetime 1-star diamond.
Exactly, and that further confuses people as to
Yes.
who is and who isn't in that who is and who isn't in that income category, right?
Right.
And so there's been a lot of ways to make it even less clear than the unclear earnings data. It's
How
even
can we make
more,
this more murky?
exactly. It's like
Right.
it's like they're really trying to make it murky, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
somewhere
Well, we know
between
that they are, and we know why.
the disclosure and this, my answer is going to sort of blend together. But this issue of persistence, if I had to tell you that of the 100 people that earned $500,000 or more, 98 of them have been the same for the last 5 years.
That's such an amazing point. Yeah.
That would be meaningful information, wouldn't it?
Right.
I've never considered that. I wrote that down as you were saying it. The top
Earner persistence.
top earner persistence. I wrote that down for sure.
Because
Yeah.
the fact that we don't know that information, and I've written about that. I wrote this in a Seeking Alpha piece probably 3 years ago or so. But the fact that we don't know that information means that everything else about the earnings statement is more meaningless.
Yes, Emma.
This is an excellent point, Emma. In the back office, you will see your failure, but on the outside, you're paraded as the highest paid rank. But that you feel horrible.
Yeah.
You feel horrible when you actually know the truth and
Right.
you're presenting it. Michelle shared one time. Was it you where you were like you had hit the rank? You had made a bunch of fake accounts and hit the rank, and then your upline was like, "Can you do a training call on how you did that?" And you had to fake the whole entire thing because you couldn't
I
say,
made it
"I
up.
just made a bunch of fake emails and did it myself."
I was asked based on my success to go live in our Facebook group and share my tips. How did I do it? But I was not expected to say, "Oh, well, I made a bunch of fake ghost accounts and paid for all of the products myself." Like I was expected to go live and spout out the stuff that they told me I should be doing.
And the
And
other
pretend like that worked for me, but it didn't.
no, and the other thing that I think can happen is, suppose I'm at an event, I can go, I'm looking around this event. That person achieved that rank. That person achieved that rank. That person achieved that rank. All convincing people that these people that I'm pointing out all have achieved that rank, right? And now that the fact that most or none of them, or most or all of them, no longer are at that rank, I'm not going to say that, right? I'm just going to point them out as these success stories, evidence of success, even though when those individuals are done, and when they've added up their earnings and they've added up their expenses, they weren't that. They weren't the success story that I portrayed them to be.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting when you see people make these claims they're only going to give the positive side. So you really have to reverse engineer everything that an MLMer says so you can get the facts. A great example is the other day in the defector support group, there was a picture shared of my former mentor and my former upline, and they were hanging out. And my former mentor was like, "Congratulations to this person. She just sold $12,000 of LuLaRoe for the first time in a year." And I was like, that seems a little backhanded. And also, why would you say that? Like, why would you let everybody know that she hasn't been able to do this in over a year? Because that's gross. So she, made $6,000 minus her expenses? What are we at? Minus taxes, minus everything. What are you at, $3,000 now? So you made $3,000 and we're, woo, everybody check it out. There's a picture.
Over a year.
Woo, in
over a year.
Yeah,
and then
for a whole year she couldn't hit that. But she's still a coach.
Divide that by the number of hours she's
still a coach.
And her hourly wage or her hourly income based on that is not good.
Yeah, weird flex.
It was a really weird flex. I was like, I just commented with a bunch of upside down smiley faces because I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, Beth makes a good point up here. You cannot trust the income disclosures when they don't disclose everything, which brings us to number 5.
Right.
If earnings claims are allowed, should the evidence and the record keeping be required?
Right.
I think if you're going to make any claim that this is going to be the best thing that happened to me, you
Right.
better bring it, right?
Yeah, and this is where the industry is going to focus as well. They're going to focus hard on what are you making us do, and that we don't usually do that, or we're you're imposing a cost on us that's unfair or whatever.
They can afford it.
Well, the record keeping is an important part, as you just said, about if you're going to say this to me, like Roberta just said, then there ought to be a record of it. Where the industry is going to push back really hard here is on this issue of expenses.
Gina, sorry.
No, that's fine. And so this is supposed to be interactive.
Absolutely.
So this issue of expenses, they're going to push back on it. And you'll notice that LuLaRoe, in their settlement, they were supposed to specify expenses in any future income claims, and they listed possible expenses, but they didn't specify them.
Too. And it's also it's interesting because LuLaRoe was required to have a Washington income disclosure because of the case that we did, and if it's on their website, you can click it. And it's really interesting if you guys have time to go look at the differences between the regular income disclosure and the Washingtonian income disclosure, because there's more information, there's different colors. Like it just makes the regular one look really shady.
And why would you have two?
And why do you need two? Just make one that encompasses everything.
Right.
Or are we going to just let the other 49 states sue so you have 50 income disclosures? It's just ridiculous. Just make one.
Right.
Across the board.
Right. That's exactly right. So, yes, it is going to have to recruit some.
That's my favorite comment today so far, Jana. Sorry.
True. There are going to be, there's a lot of data they already have. I'm absolutely confident of that. Probably the expenses data they're going to push back on real hard.
Yeah, I did the math on that back in, I think, the spring, and I just picked, it was really difficult because I was trying to be very fair and very average. I wanted to say this is the average of all these things. I tried to find an MLM with at least 3 income disclosures that I could then find the average of the averages, do the math based on a 20-hour work week, because everybody says it's a side hustle and it's
being very generous.
So I was being very generous. I gave them every benefit of the doubt, and everyone still came up less than the average of prison labor.
Right.
Every single one was less than prison labor.
Right. Let's go to question number 6.
Of course.
The
lifestyle claims.
Right.
You see this a lot in Monate and iGenius, especially, I've noticed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, I think this is an area that the FTC is sensitive to. So I have been seeing lifestyle videos and lifestyle claims since the 90s. So if you have a story to tell here, either about all those that you were exposed to or any that you were asked to share, whatever, yes, share it. I think that any rule that doesn't address the lifestyle claims issue will be missing out. I think that the FTC has addressed this a little bit, and we have seen some sensitivity within the MLMs about what they can say from the stage or whatever. If imagine this. Imagine if an MLM company could be penalized by the FTC for lifestyle claims made by top distributors.
And if those top distributors were also penalized by the FTC.
Top distributors also. Exactly right. Good point. Yep.
Well, like, so I'm a cosmetologist, and if you get dinged by the state board comes in and goes, hey, literally I got dinged one time because my water bottle didn't say water. It had, part of it had rubbed off. You could still say that it said water, but it wasn't enough for the state board, and they dinged me a $50 fee just for that. My salon also got dinged the $50 fee. Both of us were fined. The salon for letting it happen, and me being the cosmetologist that it happened to. Mm-hmm. So if the State Board of Cosmetology can do it, the FTC can do it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Dave's latest comment, can you highlight that? Does this also include health claims? I would think that this is just talking about earnings claims, right?
It is. And I mean, there's nothing.
But with the respect to the lifestyle that they've created with their vast amounts of money.
Right. Yes, I think to the extent that you feel as if the one has fed the other, yeah, I think that you can definitely mention it. The emphasis is here on earnings claims and lifestyle, but certainly the things that people say that help them get where they wanted to go. And so, yeah, I would worry. I just want to say I would worry if the focus was too much on health claims or product claims.
Well, what comes to mind when I read that is I recently saw a video that someone who works for or sells for Monat had put out that essentially was just dragging anyone who has employer subsidized health insurance because she has the privilege with her amazing earnings as a top leader in Monat to not even need health insurance. So I mean that comes to mind as a lifestyle claim as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane what people say. It really
I
think
is.
You know who I'm talking about, Roberta. Frangie.
So then the last point, and I don't know how long you were hoping to go today yet. So
however long we need.
Okay. Yeah, whenever you need to go, you can go.
All right. Well, I'm going to shoot for, so let's go a little after 2. That'll be a couple hours.
Perfect.
And I have a bunch of grading waiting for me.
I have editing to do too, so I understand.
And I'm giving an exam on Monday. And so I'm going to take my own advice of what I just told you. So I write the exam questions out, then I let them sit, and then I go back and look at them again.
Let them stew.
So, yeah. So I have to do that yet this weekend. So anyhow, but can a rule of earnings claims provide benefits that exceed the cost of the business? Again, this is tied directly to question number 1. The fact that you and I see a big problem here means that the cost that that the companies are going to have to incur to help address this problem, I think, is more than justified. In fact, it almost makes me frustrated, given all the years that this has been going on, and they were not having to incur these costs and not having to report this information. But nonetheless, so when you even if you don't want to get into the specifics of costs, because you may not know the costs, but when you make your point on number 1, when you make your point about the seriousness of this problem, you will be helping to reinforce the issue that the benefits will far outweigh the costs.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I'm just happy that we have this and that we're able to address these things and create these comments so that the FTC can actually hear us. Again, like Amway, mostly Amway, produced 17,000 comments 10 years ago when this happened. So we need to beat that. And guess what? They know we're doing it. So we even need to go even harder on that and really share this as many places as possible. We know that there are more victims of MLM than there are winners.
Yeah, but
and we really need to share.
The industry knows, and the industry's smart, and the industry has money, the industry has lawyers, so they will act accordingly. But they definitely know. I did see a comment earlier from GDGM about whether or not we're going to have a 2022 conference. And the answer is
yes.
We're working on it. So
Yes.
I don't have a lot more to say about it right yet, but I'm in conversation with the original people that helped put together the last conference. And when we have something to announce, we definitely will. We are working on it.
I was talking to Alonda about that as well, so I'm super down to help you guys with that.
Good.
Let's see what other slides. What has changed? I think we kind of
touched
on this.
We did. Yep.
And then what
By the way,
I
just want to go back to the last one real quick. I just want to give you guys a shout out. No, back to the what is changed.
This one.
I want to give you guys a shout out. Anti-MLM movement. As I mentioned here, consumer complaints about the MLM industry continue, and the anti-MLM movement developed and grew on social media. You guys have helped bring this change, and your efforts to warn others, your efforts to share the fact that you were embarrassed, that you made a mistake, that you wish you knew something that you didn't know at the time. Those efforts are being noticed by not just the FTC, but they're being noticed by the industry. And the industry is worried. The industry is worried that your voice is being heard.
They should be.
Yeah.
They should be. I remember seeing, I think it was last summer, someone sent me a screenshot, and it was from the DSA or the MLM News or something like that. And they literally mentioned the Vice documentary. And it was like 2 months before LuLaRich came out. And I was just like, if you're angry about that.
Yeah. I still refer. I refer people to the Vice documentary because it's short and it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, it's great. That and John Oliver are really great intros to just understanding. And then if you're still interested, we've got all kinds of content that you can go into. Really just spiral for days and weeks of all of this information. So I'm so proud of the anti-MLM community. When we come together and we work together, we really make really big effective change. And I think this is proof of that. Proof of what we can do as a community. And
absolutely. And just like with us putting on this conference, we don't have to agree among us on every little detail, on every little thing, and we may have real differences on things, but when we get together, when the steering committee got together, when the steering committee got together, we focused on the one thing that we completely deeply agree upon, and that's this issue of consumer harm and consumer protection.
Absolutely.
And so, Robert Fitzpatrick may feel one way. I may feel something different about different issues. Doug may feel something different. But we all recognize this. And
you find that common thread and laser focus.
Exactly.
Like, we got to get this done.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I've been married.
We're not all best friends here, and that's okay. We're colleagues, and we're working together for the greater good.
I've been married almost 50 years, and my wife and I still have things we don't always agree about, right? But we haven't found enough common ground to make that work, right? So
perfect. That's a great analogy.
The focus is on the things that work for us together to achieve things, and it's possible.
Hi, Joe.
So what was the last slide? Is that this is here. Just some things to think about,
And all of this is on the website as well if you need to read.
What you encouraged to do or whatever. There's nothing wrong with appealing to the FTC's sense of pride and saying thank you for making this initiative in consumer protection. It's really important. And here was my story. Here's my experience. Or here's what I found out. And here's what was hurtful. And here's what cost me money. And here's what I ended up, impacting other people. And here's my evidence. And I think first of all, you can do it. And it's important.
Yeah. And the last slide is how to submit the comment. And it's not even open right now. Right. So as that goes and as we sort of figure it out, we will be circling back to this and probably do, some infographics.
We'll do some updates
like that to walk people through it. Update. Exactly.
There will be, there's a countdown on the website. If you MLMchange.org.
There's
Yeah, it has all of this info. And the April 15th is not.
it's
probably
going to be moved
next
back because I didn't know at the time when I wrote this exactly when it was going to go live and stuff.
Sure.
There's also, do you guys know of a podcast called The Financial Diet?
I don't.
Yes, I think so. I've heard of that.
Mostly focused on financial issues and women financial savvy and that kind of stuff. I think Monday, it's a podcast with me. I didn't know about the ANPR yet, but because I taped this in December, whatever it was. But she had asked some good questions, and it might be of interest to some people.
Yeah, I just followed them on Instagram, and we can definitely share all of that. We're going to go ahead with Michelle's website and MLM Change. Anything, even this chat, Alonda's chat, anything that's pertaining to this, any podcasts that I do, I'm talking to Doug next week. All of that will go on the website as well. So you'll be able to find all updated information on Michelle's website, which is mlmchange.org. It will redirect. We're going to have the Spanish speaking. We're going to try to get as much. If any of you out there are bilingual, trilingual, and can translate things into different languages, into communities that you think would need this information, please reach out to us. You can email me, therealrobertablevins.com. Michelle, give your email as well so they can reach out to you.
Sure. It's MICH, just Mish at spoonstop.com. Jana, yes, anyone can submit comment. And
anyone in the world.
Forgot my last. Oh yes, and that is so important because we know that in different countries, even American companies are preying on these people in different. I mean, Monate just expanded to Australia. That was a big deal. But I think Amway is like a really big offender in the Philippines, and we actually have a friend, Elaine, who is going to be translating a lot of our things into Tagalog, and it's fantastic, and we need to get the word out to everyone in the world.
It's really, really great.
And if anyone has a specific question or something, my email's on that.
We have, and we actually have a few starred comments. I don't know if there was a time for like a quick Q&A or if we were going to sign off.
A couple minutes really quick. Where was one that I wanted to highlight? About turnover. Is there any research on the turnover rate of MLMs compared to comparable opportunities? I don't think MLMs keep that information.
Some MLMs report retention figures. For example, Herbalife reports it in their annual report. Remember, most MLMs are private. And the only thing a private firm has to do is to pay their taxes. So they have to calculate the profit and pay their taxes to the IRS. That's the only thing they have to do. And most MLMs are private. Public MLMs may, in the interest of keeping their investors interested in them. And let me just say something about that real quick. Major investors, companies who should know better, buy and support MLMs by buying their stock. And I'm sorry that they do that, but they do. Companies like BlackRock and Fidelity and companies like that. But the only ones that I'm aware of are some of the public MLMs will put retention data in there. It still doesn't give us a full picture, I think, of how distributors persist over time. Just because I retained you from last year to this year doesn't mean that you're going to even stay more than another few months necessarily. We don't have all that information.
Yeah. Another question was, what happens if the FTC imposes a new rule and the MLM companies don't follow the rule, or they find loopholes to get around it?
Right.
Is it the same again?
Right. The process that I talked about before is going to be that they're going to propose the rule language. The FTC, the industry will try to shape the language in the rule. The rule will get finalized. If the industry or companies believe that the FTC has gone beyond their powers, then they'll probably bring a suit. But let's just assume the rule is finalized. So the rule is finalized, and it then comes into effect. And the FTC will be able to do some sort of enforcement action against the
I have been really curious about that because the wording of the letter from the FTC that went out last November, I think it was, or October, to over 1,000 multi-level marketing companies. It said that for each violation, you could incur up to a $47,000 or $43,000 penalty. I have reported so many of these, and I just wonder, has anybody been fined?
I don't know the answer to that, and I wish I did, because those letters aren't going to mean much if they don't have something that backs them up. And the threat of a fine is not the same as a fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
we know that, Jenny.
Right. So the theory, you have to. The theory is good, but they have to actually make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings up one other issue I just want to mention. So the FTC has limited resources. The FTC, the commissioners change over time. The staff changes over time. There are seven districts, and the districts make decisions about bringing cases forward in consultation with Washington, D.C. So I guess what I'm saying is this is not a problem that this rule is going to solve. This is a problem that this rule will try to help manage.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's so important.
So, most human created problems don't get solved. They get managed. And so we're trying to find a way the FTC is trying to find a way, hopefully they will find a way to help better manage a problem.
Yeah, and I think this is a great opening discussion. I think we answered a lot of questions, and I hope that people are less confused about the process. And again, like we're saying, please keep up with us. Someone had a question about wanting to volunteer, and where do we send our efforts for volunteer services. Again, message us, please. Message us on Instagram. Comment and say, hey, I messaged you, or just email us, reach out to us. We would love to have your help. We would love to have your volunteer, especially if you have a niche in one of these things that we need. We would absolutely love to have it. It is 100% a group effort. The entire community needs to come together on this. And I'm talking about
very, very grassroots.
The trolls on Reddit, the people on Instagram, the people on Facebook, TikTok, everybody. Everybody needs to come together for this.
If people can mentor people to stay in MLMs, it seems like people can mentor people to help bring a rule that will manage this problem. So there may even be people who are like, I don't know what to write. So even if you just ended up being a sounding board for them, so that they would feel a little more confident to submit their comment, anything that could be helpful to get that next comment out. All right, I need to go.
There's that one. This is the number, and again, when we do this, then that will be updated as well.
So
thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you for inviting me.
I know we went a little longer than we expected, but it was wonderful. And if anybody has more questions, really check out Alonda tomorrow, the Recovering Hunbot. Bill will be on there as well, and we'll answer more questions and go into this a little bit more in depth as well. Thank you so much, Bill. I will be in touch.
All right.
That was awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to Michelle. You guys have no idea how much work Michelle has been putting in on the back end of this. This week was crazy for me. I didn't get to help as much as I wanted to, but we've got more than 60 days at this point because we really don't know when this rule is going to be open and in effect. Once that happens, we'll let you all know. You will not miss it as long as you're following us on social media and you're following along. The podcast, we'll be editing and updating on there as much as we possibly can. Again, really want to thank Bill for coming on and spending 2 hours on his Saturday with us. I know he's got lots of stuff to do. And I know you're busy too. And I know
it just goes to show how important this is.
Absolutely. It's absolutely
and how important we all are. The hashtag anti-MLM is what I call us newbies to the movement, and then there's the OGs like Bill and Bob and Doug and Stacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, so many really wonderful people on the back end doing this and coming together. And I'm going to reach out to some of those other people and see if maybe they want to join us on some of these live chats. The more that we get information, reach out to Tracy and reach out to Stacy and get them on here as well.
Mm-hmm. There are several people that I would like to reach out to as well who are, who have large followings on podcasts that are maybe tangentially related. I'm going to probably ping you later to ask how in contact you are with Sarah Edmondson.
Yes, absolutely. She's
because
friend, so
next year I'm started as an MLM, so
yeah, we can talk to the cult people that have their fingers and say, hey, this is what's going to go on and this is what we're doing. I think Sarah would be super down to help. They're great. Maybe they can do an episode on the show, or they can come on. I don't know. We'll work some stuff out, but I really do think it's important, as many voices as we possibly can, as many different reaches. I have an audience that doesn't reach the same audiences as other people, and so it's really, really important that we're all working together. If anybody ever wants to come on the show, you feel like you have an expertise in something and you want to talk about it, I am so unbelievably open and welcoming. Email me, for real. The best way to get a hold of me is
how I ended up here.
It's the best way. I promise you guys. I get emails that are like, I messaged you on Facebook. I said, yes.
Cool.
Email me. You're feeling
like, that's
energized
the first
at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh my goodness,
Dave, you're so great.
Thank you, Dave, so much for the quiz. And if anyone is just catching the end of this, MLMchange.org redirects to a page that has all of these resources, including an amazing, like BuzzFeed style quiz that Dave made. 10 questions, and it'll kind of guide you in the right direction for, formatting your public comment. So cool. Yep. Thank you.
You click them all, and he tells you like which of these rules is like more affected by your comment, so that you can focus your energy on those places and not worry about other things that don't really pertain to you and your experience. Again, anyone can comment. Anyone in the world. You don't have to be an MLMer. You don't have to be an anti-MLMer. You don't have to have really anything other than experience in this. Even if it swept through your family and your sister or your best friend, or you lost a partner over this, those sort of things are really, really important too.
Or you just have ADHD and pick this.
And maybe you're just obsessed and you're like, I just love this. I saw Lula Rich. I went down the rabbit hole. I'm here for it. How can I help? We want your help too. Share those experiences. I know I've never met anybody that's like, what's an MLM? I've never heard of that. I've never experienced that. When I explain it, every single person's like, oh, yeah, okay, I have experience with this. So if you have experience, and I know you do, we're talking to you. Please.
Your voice is needed.
Check the website. It redirects. We'll have the Spanish-speaking version up as soon as possible. And again, we said call to action if anybody is able to translate into other languages, at least the most important stuff. I think that would be really, really wonderful. Elaine here, absolutely. Solutions need to be incremental. And we're so thankful for Elaine as well to be here to help with the Filipino population, because you guys, the more that we're doing research and talking to victims in other countries, the more we are realizing that like it is so bad in so many countries where, like I was talking to Dave about Taiwan, people live in these generational homes, and it's like you can't even get away from it because it's in your home constantly, and 1 in 3 families are affected, and it's a lot, and there's not as much regulation. And so we really need to do this. We really need to be the voice and the example to set forth all of this. And I'm really excited for where this is going. And very, very,
very hopeful.
It's super helpful, and I'm super appreciative. Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for being understanding that, I'm not in an MLM anymore, so I get to choose my schedule and my time, and I got to spend the day with my daughter yesterday, and we are doing this today instead. That's another thing to remember, is we get to choose what we do, and we have our freedom. And so I want to thank you guys for that as well, for being understanding and for coming today. It was wonderful. I can't
And share,
wait
share,
to
share. This is going up on
share,
YouTube.
share.
So share, share,
Share,
share.
share, share. This will be up on YouTube as soon as I hit the in broadcast button, and you guys can share this. It's going to be on Michelle's website as well. And I'm talking to Doug next week, and I talked to Dave, and so those episodes will be bonus episodes on the podcast, so we can get this information up probably on Wednesdays, so we can get that information up as quickly as possible. And then again, those will be on Michelle's website too. So even if you're like, there's so much, what do I listen to? What do I look at? Go to mlmchange.org, and everything that you should be looking at will be there. And if you have something you've created that you think needs to be on that, email Michelle and she will put it on there for you as well.
Yep. Just mich@spoonstop.com. I mean,
Awesome.
Give me whatever. You can DM me on Instagram, Fallible Spoonie. I respond to everything because I'm not super popular. So
yeah, you are. We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday and a wonderful rest of your weekend. If you guys need anything, we'll be around, probably going live answering questions and like through the weekend. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Roberta.
Yeah, thank you guys. This doesn't happen without you guys. So as long as you guys give me things to do, I will continue to do them. Yes, use it all. Use it all. Use it all.
This is all free resources, no watermarks, no credit. Like, take whatever you need and share, share, share.
I love you guys. And don't forget, follow Alonda, follow her channel, and don't miss her chat tomorrow with Bill. And we will see you guys soon. Bye.